Howdy, this is Mackenzie Franklin from SideGame LLC here in Colorado Springs, Colorado. I'm joined by two amazing guests to the channel from Conspiracy Kitchen. This is Kayla and Reegan. Kayla and Reegan, how is your Sunday going?
Hi, great. I'm excited to be here. We're also in Colorado Springs, so it's cold and snowy.
A lot of snow.
Before we get into this top 10 list, which are our favorite Marvel Legendary and X-Files Legendary keywords, I want to quickly introduce who Kayla and Reegan are and how they know the channel. Now, Kayla and Reegan actually are running a blog called Conspiracy Kitchen, and they have a huge focus on the X-Files franchise as they're doing a rewatch of all of the different episodes and pairing those episodes with recipes. Now, Kayla and Reegan are also avid gamers, so they have knowledge in so many different facets, talented people in general. Reegan, Kayla, give me a little bit about you and what Conspiracy Kitchen is.
Well, I am Kayla, and I guess my day job is as a librarian, but I am a huge X-Files fan, and I also love to cook. So kind of Conspiracy Kitchen came about from like wanting to be a little more creative in cooking, I would say. And we thought a fun way to do that would be to pair it with the X-Files. So like we watch an episode and then we think of something to make based on the episode. And sometimes the connections are a little tenuous, but sometimes they're really spot on. I don't know, Reegan, what do you want to add?
Yeah, I think sometimes our connections to an episode is purely pun-based. Which I generally enjoy. Some are really easy. Like one is this delicious sandwich, or broccoli sandwich. And it is essentially because Scully got to eat in that episode. And it was the saddest plate of a salad I've ever seen in my life. And we decided to make something that she would enjoy more than the world's saddest salad.
I love it. And I can actually vouch from experience that I've actually tried some of these recipes and they are indeed bangers. The one that we tried in particular was this spicy Southwest sheet pan gnocchi, and it was wonderful. It was fresh, tasty, vibrant, and a lot of these options are going to be vegetarian and vegan friendly because Kayla and Reegan are both vegetarians. So it's something to be aware of as well. It's a great healthy option and also doesn't break the bank. So I recommend these recipes wholeheartedly. And if you're going through an X-Files rewatch or it's something you're interested in, it's on Hulu right now. You can see all of the different episodes of X-Files, and I recommend using the blog. It's a great companion piece. Kayla and Reegan, anything else you want to add before we start on the list?
I was thinking, we also make sure we tag all our recipes. So you said budget friendly. We have a couple in there that are specifically geared towards that. Like you can make it really easily for a group of 4. And we label everything vegetarian. Everything is vegetarian, and some things are either purely vegan or easily changed to be vegan. And we make that in all our taglines.
Yeah. And sometimes we are going through and like reimagining some as vegan. So right now we have a very cheese-based chowder on there, but we have figured out a way to make it really good and cheese-free and vegan. So I'm excited about that.
Yep, that'll be coming up soon.
Yeah, that's a forthcoming recipe. And these are really fun to think about. I was gonna say, I think the spicy Southwest one that you highlighted, even though it's like the 9th episode, it was one of the first ones we thought of because the episode is space and it's this weird kind of dull account of ghosts in space that should be exciting, but it's kind of boring, and they make NASA really boring. And like the thing we took from that episode was that they landed in Albuquerque, so we're like, what's a Southwesty thing? And the other thing we took from it is that this episode was so sometimes there's some behind the scene knowledge because this episode was supposed to be like low production costs, so we're like, we should do a budget meal. And the funny thing is we succeeded in a budget meal. The X-Files did not succeed because that was like their most expensive episode of season 1.
And all it is like hallways.
Yeah, all it is
like episode. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's hilarious that you're like, oh yeah, what do we do for Southwest? Gnocchi. I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Okay. Ariana and I grew up in New Mexico, went to college there as well. So it's just funny that's the thing that you took from that episode. So let's go ahead and get into the list here. If you haven't checked out Conspiracy Kitchen, there's a link in the description below. But let's start this list on Marvel Legendary. As the description says, we're going to do our top 10 legendary keywords, and we're going to divide the list into 3. So we'll each talk about our 3 favorites. I'll give you an extra one for bonus just to round out the list and make sure it's a 10 so you're not lied to in the description. If you aren't familiar with the legendary system, it debuted with Marvel Legendary. So this is a game that we've played a lot of. I'm currently up to date, played all the expansions, and this is one that we consistently come back to and enjoy the deck building system of. In the original Legendary, you have a main game board that is going to be populated with villains as they try to traverse the city. You're going to be using a combination of currencies, one that is stars that you'll be using to buy cards, and then you'll be using strikes in order to attack and deal damage. There's a mastermind that has something that they're trying to complete, their scheme, and it's your job to defeat that mastermind before they put their scheme into effect. However, we also have some more additions that have been released, starting with the Legendary Encounters X-Files deck building game, which uses the same core system of multiple currencies, but adds a new theme and additional mechanisms and keywords that we'll make sure to highlight here. Now, Reegan and Kayla, I'm going to give the floor to you really quick. What are the biggest differences in the Legendary Encounters X-Files system?
I would say I can't speak for all Encounters games, but for like comparing X-Files to Marvel, I think the biggest difference and one that I love is how everything is hidden. So like you deploy the monsters or the villains, but they're hidden, so you have to reveal them before you can even fight them. And the same way for the recruiting field, like you have to reveal those before you can recruit them. And it feels very X-Files-y to me, like very thematic, because you don't know what you're getting, and you have to do a little investigating. What else, Reegan?
Oh, I think it goes along with the theme is the big bad, in Marvel Legendaries, who the villain is the entire time, most of the time. They're out to the side of the board. But here, you pull it from a stack. It's completely randomized. You put it at the bottom. It's coming at the end. And you have to try to, while you're defeating all the villains and monsters, try to discover evidence to help you out in that end game battle.
I love it. It's great thematic touch, and I think that that's something that Legendary does amazingly with their encounter system. From James Bond to Predator and Alien, those are some of the best Legendary systems because of that thematic integration and building on that foundation from Marvel Legendary. So with that all being said, now that you're kind of caught up to speed on what Legendary is, let's talk about our favorite keywords. Now, as mentioned before, I am going to throw in one quick honorable mention. This is the honorary number 10, because we are going to talk about all 3, and this one is for the size changing keyword. And if we do have any crossover, we'll make sure to talk about it here. But size changing is if you have a symbol in your hand on your turn or that you've played, you can get a discount on certain cards. So of course, Ant-Man has this size changing keyword. So if you have that microchip symbol, you're going to be able to just buy this card for too cheap. And this even translates into something like microscopic size changing, where if you have multiple occurrences of the symbol, it can get even smaller in cost and eventually even become free and give you currency back. I think it's thematic and fun and gives you purposeful reasons to buy certain colored cards. So that's the quick honorable mention. That is the size changing. So that all being said, let's jump into the list with our number 3s. Let's have Kayla, you start first, and we'll kind of wrap around Kayla, then Reegan, then myself. So Kayla, what's your first keyword that you enjoy?
My first is from the X-Files game, and it's something that is unique from X-Files compared to Marvel, and it's power. And what that is not relevant to the cards, but it has to do with how the board is set up. So like the whole idea behind it in the game is that the FBI bureau has a lot of power. So when you're recruiting your cards in this one, you also get a little like bonus boost depending on where you recruit from. So they're like thematically linked to the game as well. So like the first one, like field office transfer, like you get your card and you get to put it on top of your deck. And that can really help you like plan how you're going to use the cards that are in the bureau, right? You might like buy something or recruit something because you can just use it in like that turn and it's going to be great. I love the like the motivational speech one I really appreciate, which is the 4th one to the right. And that's like the X-Files has this belief and doubt system that it uses, and so it'll help you like defeat your doubts. And Motivational speeches are kind of like a key component of the X-Files. Like Mulder gives these really like amazing like dialogue. So like I always think about that when I recruit something from that category. So I like it, and I really like it. I'll talk a little bit more about how it interacts with my second best keyword coming up, but like I really like how it interacts with the game, and I really like how it makes it feel very X-Filesy.
Now I have a question for you. Do you actually make motivational speeches when this happens? Do you get up from the show? No?
I mean, I think I use not a full-on motivational speech, but you got to draw that card and be like, I want to believe, right? Like something like that.
Especially since you always play, we forgot to mention this, but you get a character when you play, and you usually play Mulder. So if you're Mulder, you should always be giving a motivational speech.
Should bust out a slideshow too.
Yeah.
So that's our first keyword. That's the power keyword. Reegan, what's your number 3?
Okay. I want one from Marvel, and that one is the double-sided transforming schemes, which is a whole mouthful to say. But I really like playing with that set when you can... it will just change kind of sort of randomly, sort of, you know, you can kind of anticipate it coming, but it is how you interact with the game differently just in one game. So like the one is like, again, we've used the word thematic a lot, but it's so thematic because the one I can think of is like the House of M card, which, you know, everybody knows about the House of M and the Scarlet Witch and kind of her descent into insanity.
No more mutants.
No more. But this one, you kind of changes how you interact with the Scarlet Witch cards and how you acquire them. Rather than purchasing them, you're fighting them to get them into your hand. But then that can flip on a dime, depending on how the scheme is. And
go ahead.
It's just, there's nothing really the same in the X-Files one, because the X-Files doesn't do schemes at all.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
You gave the House of M your example here. What sort of gameplay differences usually happen when you flip from each side of the scheme to each side?
Mm-hmm. Usually, you can't rely on what heroes you can acquire, because the flip side of it is all the heroes clear at the bottom, and who knows what you're getting next. So you're either like, ooh, I can get a bunch of Scarlet Witches in my hand, or I can get almost nothing in my hand, because the way I was playing the game was kind of based on what I could acquire on my next turn, and it's completely gone based on a scheme. So I just like the unpredictability, because I feel like if you play a game often enough, you can fall into kind of ruts, like you want to play with the same characters you really like, and this kind of forces you to mix it up a little bit when your plan isn't going to go as you intended.
I like that. It brings an arc to the entire experience and allows you to evolve and adapt based on what the scheme is doing.
Yes, I like when it just, you don't know, is unpredictable, which is good in a game that if you just play the base game, it can become very predictable.
Makes sense to me. Anything else you want to add to this one, Reegan or Kayla?
I was just gonna say, arc is a really good way to describe what happens. Like, it gives your like game almost like a storytelling kind of approach.
Yes, which is how we kind of approach playing Legendary. Like, we put together our heroes in the deck based on who, like, ooh, these will make an interesting team together.
Oh, yeah, we do the same thing. Whenever a new movie's about to come out, we're like, all right, get all the Black Panther stuff out, grab Namor, let's go. It's happening. Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Totally.
With the 4-1, you just, like, got to gather them all. Yes. We also like to make, the Superwoman team to see who they can take on.
Super fun.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and move to my number 3, and this is a simple one, but an effective one, also from the mutant set. This is the X-Gene keyword. So X-Gene is a simple keyword. All it means is you're going to check your, one moment. All you're going to do is check your discard pile, and if you have the matching color in your discard pile, you get an additional bonus effect. I love this so much because of how straightforward and simple it is. You're going to be using your abilities to buy cards in order to set up these potential X gene combos. For example, right here, X23 has X gene for yellow. If you've got a yellow in your discard pile, you get to draw a card. It's straightforward, it's simple, and it's something that you can actively set up and pursue from round to round, or you can build your entire deck around this strategy. And it also works in tandem with other keywords. For example, you have Berserk, X23 again. Almost all of her cards have this X gene, which I love. So as you're playing, you are constantly playing tactically and strategically, trying to set up for these big combo turns. You also see this in Beast, and pretty much everything in that set have something to do with X gene. It's simple, great to set up, and allows you to play turn by turn and still get use out of your stars in the later stages of the game. Like this one, how thematic and simple it is, but it's a cool keyword that is X gene. Kayla and Reegan, do you have an experience playing with this one? I know you're fans of the X-Men set.
No, you know what? I don't think I've played with the X gene, but it looks really exciting. I love to stack the the symbols. I forget what they're called, but like I really love to build my decks around that. So like I'm like, ooh, we need to procure the X gene set.
Yeah, we have a different the other X-Men pack that we like to play with, because who doesn't like to play with the X-Men in there?
Agreed. And I think it does combo well with the other keywords like Hyperspeed and Berserk, where you're discarding cards off the top of your deck. It's allowing you to trigger multiple keywords through one single system. So I think there's a lot of diversity here with the X gene keyword, and X23 does a good job of showcasing that. So that's my number 3. That is the X gene keyword. So Kayla, will wrap around back to you with number 2. What's your second one here?
All right. It is an X-Files one, and it is Compromised. And what this is there are essentially villain cards in the recruitment deck, and I love it. So if you have any familiarity with the X-Files, you know that there's like this shadowy government agency called the Syndicate. And they, of course, are like integrated into the FBI bureau. It's what the cigarette smoking man or cancer man is like part of and associated with. And, you know, he has his hands in the FBI. He's not like part of the FBI, but he definitely has some control. So what you get with this like compromised thing is you build your recruitment deck and you add in some syndicate cards, and then of course they're all hidden, so you deal out your cards that you can recruit, and they're all face down, and then you reveal them. And sometimes you might reveal like the cigarette smoking man or Krychek, or somebody who's like, you know, their allegiances aren't clear and can Mulder and Scully trust them. And it integrates really well with that like power mechanic, and that you can't just ignore them. Like sometimes you need to be able to like give that motivational speech, defeat your doubt, but like Krychek is sitting there on the board and you have to like defeat him while you're also dealing with the like the threats from the conspiracy deck, like all the monsters and stuff. So like it's definitely an interesting mechanic, and I keep, you know, back to that whole thematic thing. It does make me really, really feel like the X-Files are happening, because like you're like, I just need to be able to recruit a lone gunman card and be able to do this, and then you flip it over and there it is. It's a smoking man, and you're just like,
of course.
You could say you can trust no one.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. Excellent mechanism, these hidden cards. Awesome.
Yeah. I don't know. Does Marvel have any that are like that? I can't think of any.
I think that there are some scheme twists that do things like shuffling heroes into the villain deck, things like that. But I don't think there's any core keywords right now that are integrating villains into the hero deck. So that would be an interesting scheme idea. And I think that's something that could easily integrate.
Yeah. Like align with like Secret Wars or something.
I would say it feels like it was a missed opportunity with Hydra. Yeah.
Oh, that's good too. I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see that, because we are getting that series very soon.
The Secret War, that's coming out this year.
This year.
Yeah.
The trailer's out. You can go watch it. It looks pretty cool. That's what I wanted the Captain Marvel arc to be during that story. So seeing that we're getting it still is very exciting to me.
Yes, it should be quite interesting. But yeah, maybe we'll get a nice expansion with that with some
compromise cards.
Yeah.
Yes.
So cool. Let's do it. Heck yes. All right, Reegan. Your number 2. Go ahead.
Oh, before we leave the compromise, nothing is worse when you're trying to help out a partner. You're like, listen, I'm going to scan the health one because you need to heal. And then you flip it over and it's a syndicate card because that's the most expensive one. It takes you 3 to scan it. And you're just helping to set up somebody else. And you're like, well, never mind. Fight somebody while you're trying to heal.
Oh, goodness. They always come out of the worst times.
They do.
Whew. All right, Reegan, your number 2 favorite keyword from Legendary.
All right. It's kind of in a similar theme because it's hard not to be when you're thinking about X-Files especially. But in the conspiracy deck along the top, you're trying to reveal the villains in the shadows. And when you flip them over, you're scanning them and they might have the keyword reveal on them. And it's kind of the same vein if you're like, oh, I only have a few fight points. I'm going to reveal it for my compatriots who are playing. And then it does something like immediately a sucker punch you. Or you have to move it out of the shadows into the field. And anything in the field will deal at the end of your turn, you damage just continuously. So the reveal, and I think, so this one is a syndicate one, which it also happens in the syndicate pile that Kayla was talking about. But there's one that's what is her name? Michelle Bishop, who's this little psychic child. You reveal her and she goes into your hand. And so you're going to be at some undetermined point in the future. That's going to be part of your hand limit. And then she goes into the field and strikes essentially. So it just kind of adds a little bit more of that unpredictableness of there's Michelle Bishop. And so you think you're being helpful, but then it ends up backfiring on you. And you're already having to spend the damage to flip the card, so you don't necessarily have damage left. This one you might be lucky because not all the villains need damage to be defeated. So if you have, a few more recruit points left over, you can maybe take her out in the future.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that there's some positives and negatives from whenever they show up and where they show up, and it still has that thematic integration tied into it. Kayla, what's your experience with this style of card, the reveal cards?
Yeah. Oh man, that first example you showed with the cigarette smoking man is so devious because it's when it's revealed, you defeat all the leads. And we didn't talk about this one, but in the X-Files one, you're every now and then you reveal a lead. So something you can do to be able to make the end game easier to defeat. So you're trying to meet the conditions, and sometimes they're defeat monsters in the shadows, sometimes it's coordinate a certain number of times, but then sometimes it's recruit, the lead is you need to recruit a certain number of things from the bureau, so you're trying to do that, it's out, and this has happened to us. You reveal then the card from the bureau that you think you can recruit, and it's this compromised cigarette smoking man syndicate enemy, so it just automatically defeats the lead, and you are going to be stuck with a more difficult end game. So
yes, because if you don't succeed in the leads, you don't discover the evidence. And if you don't have the evidence, it just powers up the end game. There's 3 different evidence to reveal, and each one is just worse than the other.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, it ratchets up their health points or the defense, or they just automatically deal you damage constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Those reveals can come out of nowhere.
Sweet. Sweet. So that is Regan's number 2, the reveal keyword. Now going to my number 2, this is from a really weird pack. It's called Dimensions, I believe. And it's the most fun named keyword, in my opinion. This is switcheroo. So switcheroo is such a cool concept. The way it works is if you get a card with switcheroo, you can, in a future turn, replace it with a card of that number. So for example, Jessica Jones, almost all of her cards have the switcheroo keyword, and they say switcheroo 5, which means while you have it in your hand, you can put it to the bottom of the hero deck and then add a 5-cost card straight into your hand from the HQ. So that means that you are playing super tactically based on what's coming out, but you're also cycling the cards in your deck. It's so cool because you can set up these combos for specific colors, and if you don't actually need to play that card, you can swap it for something that's immediately useful in that moment. Love this so much because it's allowing you to refresh and gives you so many options on your turn. That's my favorite thing in Marvel Legendary is when you're not restricted to your turns. A lot of the times you'll get like hand and be like, all right, I got 4 stars. I'm going to buy something. That's all you can do. But with something like Switcheroo, every action, every turn is a new puzzle. I love that so much because you look at it, you say, okay, this is going to open up some options here. I can either dig for a card or I can swap this for something else. Some of them are a little bit more straightforward with Switcheroo, but you now have targets on the board that this card can transform or morph into. I love this concept in general. You can also see this with, I think Squirrel Girl has a bunch of Switcheroo cards. So love how all of the Dimensions cards feature this and lets you see them more and encourages you to buy them even if you aren't necessarily going to use them right now. That's a switcheroo keyword. Have you played with any of these cards?
No, but I can see how great they would be because there's always that one card that you're just like 1 point away from acquiring. You keep drawing like a million just the starter cards, and it's like, well, at least I can buy this guy and switcheroo it up later and just slowly start, pushing yourself up a little bit higher.
It's fun, flexible, and weirdly thematic, particularly with Squirrel Girl. A lot of fun. That's the switcheroo keyword. That brings us to our last picks. These are our number 1 favorite keywords from Legendary. Kayla, what do you got for me?
Mine is from Marvel, and it's the first thing I thought of when you suggested this topic because I love it. I just really love cross-dimensional rampage. So that's the one. It's with like a lot of Hulk cards, and I think Wolverine as well. But I like playing with the Hulk. And it's just everybody else has to be able to reveal a Hulk card or Wolverine if it's that one. And if not, they get wounds. And I just think it's great. It brings a lot of like existential questions for me. I'm just like, does this mean that like each player's deck is its own like mini universe, right? Like, is that what its own dimension? I also have just been loving this as a like keyword and also a trope because one of my top favorite movies right now is Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I'm like, if you've ever seen I feel like the villain from that, Jobu Tupaki, is like the most cross-dimensional rampage that has like ever happened. She's giving the Hulk a run for her money. So yeah. I was trying to think of how it ties to the X-Files, seeing if I could make that like connection at all. And the only thing that I could think of is like the X-Files doesn't really and hasn't like dealt with the like parallel universes or dimensions or interdimensional kind of deal as a trope at all. There's one episode, and it's actually my favorite episode, where it kind of suggests that maybe like it's triangle. So like Mulder is maybe on a ship right before World War II, and Scully's on the ship as it exists now, and like maybe it's kind of a parallel universe, or maybe Mulder's just hallucinating the whole thing. It's it's the X-Files, so you aren't sure. But anyway, I like playing cards with cross-dimensional rampage. I like it as a trope. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Reegan, any experience with this or anything to add?
I've definitely
any experience with
played
cross-dimensional travel?
I've just been like me in another dimension, rampaging right now. We do play with this one occasionally. I have to say, Kayla usually snatches all those cards up because she really likes cross-dimensional rampage.
So your experience is being a victim of it.
Yes, because I never have the Hulk cards, and when it happens, and bad things happen. So that's my experience being exploited.
Oh my god. That's the cross-dimensional rampage. Kayla's number one. All right, Reegan, what is your number one favorite keyword?
Well, a very change of tone because mine is coordinate.
Like as thematically opposite from cross-dimensional rampage as you can get.
I went with coordinate because I just find it interesting in between us playing something like Marvel Legendaries versus X-Files Legendaries, you use coordinate differently. It's the same concept, but in Marvel Legendaries, it's a little bit more like cross-dimensional rampage, where maybe I'm going to coordinate with you because we need to get this done and we're all going to die, but maybe I don't want to because like I want to have more points at the end of the game. I want to defeat the bigger villain. I don't, it's a bit of a toss-up if I'm going to help somebody or let them go by a turn without Ned. Without them letting them score and hitting the bigger enemy. Like I want to see if maybe I can get it on my next turn. Which could backfire on you by just completely losing. So it's a bit of a balance. But in X-Files, because you're playing as that like core team, and usually we play as like Mulder and Scully as our avatars, you want to help the other person. The base cards you can pick up already come with coordinate, no matter what. Like those little 2-point cards that you just kind of grab to start filling up your hand. You can always be coordinating with those. So it feels like X-Files basis is the power to coordinate. A lot of the cards that you can acquire, especially like the Lone Gunman, I think Skinner maybe too, have a lot of the coordinate ability on them. And that's just kind of naturally built in to X-Files where you want to be helping each other. Whereas Marvel, it's a little bit more give and take. Oh yeah. So there's the special agent that you can grab for just her main function, coordinating. And then Langley we like playing with the Lone Gunman as one of the decks you can put in. So that's usually the one we have in there.
Now, really quick, Reegan, could you just explain what coordinate is? Like, what does the mechanism do? And then how it differs between Legendary with like additional effects or anything like that?
So coordinate's basic is I can just be like, hey, I have this card. Like if I hit the special agent, 2 purchasing power, 2 recruiting power. I can just say, hey, Kayla, I can't really use this. It's not as impactful for me. Do you want me to save this card? And essentially, you will duplicate it for your next turn and have 2 recruiting power. And Kayla automatically gets it. I believe in Legendary, you can turn it down. Like, you can be like, no, I don't want it. Which in itself is a strategy because I get to pull another card. So I coordinate, but I get another card that might help me more with what I'm trying to do. And if we're playing in Marvel Legendary, maybe I don't want you to pull that other card because maybe you'll be able to knock out the bigger guy.
Yeah, real talk, in the Marvel Legendary game, this set, Peter's Allies, is surprisingly busted. Like, it's so strong. Because a lot of times we'll play Marvel Legendary as a straight co-op when the Foundation is not a straight co-op game. But if you play this as a straight co-op, just grabbing any card with coordinate is insanely good. Because you're giving them a single star, but since it replaces itself, who cares? Like, go for it. Get Neds, slap a couple Neds in your deck, you'll be just fine. It's too powerful.
Yeah, you should always be coordinating.
Yeah. And like the symbols too, right? Those coordinate as well. So like sometimes if your co-player has drawn like they really need like the Spidey symbol and they didn't draw one, like coordinating that can be super powerful. Yeah. We apparently play Marvel Legendary a little antagonistically.
Yes, seriously. You're describing like, oh, I want to reach for these points. But I'm just thinking about how Ariana and I play. We never do that, ever. And I don't think that would go over well at all. But I like the way we play it as a full co-op because we play like the hardest scenarios possible.
Yeah.
That's the way I enjoy playing.
I think it's because we own like, 3 encounter games? And there's a little bit more naturally like cooperative. So I guess like our Marvel Legendaries one is like, well, this is where the gloves come off.
Yeah, like the X-Files one and the Buffy one are really, really like just completely co-op. So
Mm,
then,
okay.
yeah, Legendary is a little
Yeah.
change it up for Marvel.
That's excellent. Anything else on this coordinate keyword before we go to the final number 1?
I think that's everything.
Okay, so this final number 1 is actually very similar to another keyword that we already talked about. So earlier we talked about the transforming side schemes. Mine is just the transform keyword. I think that is my favorite mechanism in this game, and it's done in a cool way, which I appreciate thematically as well as powerfully. So the transform keyword has you, when you use it, you're able to switch that card for its transformed version. And the coolest part about that is it immediately goes into your hands. So you can use it right away. Feels so good when you're able to hit that transform keyword. Now, one of my favorite characters in the game is Rick Jones, and his special abilities is all about transforming. He's got a bunch of different modes where you'll play a card and then has some weird condition, but if you do, you're able to transform into these super powered cards. Obviously, the Hulk is going to have transform cards as well. You have Sentry who can transform, and then Bruce Banner has his own set where he can transform to the Hulk. And there's even some other weird cards you might not think, like Korg and Meek have transform cards. Sure, whatever. It's going to show their progression of power. Awesome. But I love this entire character of Rick Jones, and they've translated it not to just the hero cards, but also the enemy cards, where everything has an option to transform. The schemes can transform. The masterminds can transform. MODOK is in this set, and he has the transform keyword, and I love him. He's my favorite mastermind in the game, I think, and just the way that it integrates that keyword, and it's something you're having to prepare for and plan when you're shifting between the two. Such a great concept. It also gives you these mini objectives that you're going for to try to satisfy the transform condition. And that's so fun. I love it. You're picking up objectives and things that you're getting to be able to do. And the reward is worth it. Heck yes. Let me transform. Give me the Destiny Force. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thoughts on the transform keyword? We already heard a little bit with the side schemes.
Yeah, I think anything that gives you those little like mini objectives, if you called them, are so satisfying because you're already trying to like form that perfect deck as best as you can. And it's just great to be like really have a focus to go on, especially at the beginning. You're mostly just kind of seeing what cards come out, what your deck is going to look like, and hopefully knocking out a few villains. So it just gives you some beginning things to be kind of working towards.
Yeah. I love the mini objectives. Like we talked about this a little bit. The X-Files doesn't have transform, but it has like those leads you have to follow, which are their own like mini objectives. And I guess they like sort of transform the end game into something a little more manageable. I definitely have had the experience where I am playing a card with transform and I am so focused on trying to transform it that like the whole game happens and I don't even notice because I'm trying to like make that condition happen.
Amazing. So that's my number 1. That is the transform keyword. And that's it. That's the list. Our top 10 favorite keywords from Marvel Legendary. I'm curious to hear if you're watching live or in the comments. We'll make sure to feature your things and make sure to respond to them. What are your favorite keywords in Marvel Legendary? Which of these that we talked about are you excited to try? And in general, what do you think of the Marvel system for Legendary? And if you've played any of the encounter systems, the X-Files systems. I want to give a big thank you to Kayla and Reegan once again for joining me here from the Conspiracy Kitchen. And if you have not checked it out already, please make sure that you go check out the Conspiracy Kitchen for some amazing recipes. And as mentioned, you can go get yourself some smoky vegetarian corn chowder or potentially vegan ones if that's what you're looking for. But Conspiracy Kitchen, thank you again, Kayla and Reegan. Anything else you want to say before we close out the stream?
I'd be curious in the comments if anybody has any like one area. We do a lot of like main courses and stuff. So if anybody has any like gaming snack requests, you know, that's something we always try to think of. So like I'm curious about that. But yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, off of that, our main recipes are always based on the X-Files episodes, but we have the overall, there'll be a few, I think there's one in there that's from a book series we both really like, and we're just like, it's a little off topic, but we made some delicious piglets for a book series, The Locked Tomb, that we've been enjoying. And we're like, why not put it on the blog? Somebody else out there might like it. And we might be trying to figure out a vegan version of that too.
Yep.
It's on the list.
I love that you have all these different fandoms that you're pulling inspiration from, and you now have a place to put it out there and let everyone appreciate it. So thank you again, Kayla and Reegan. And we have a quick comment from John Franklin here. Thanks for joining the stream. Never played these legendary system games, but we make it sound exciting. That's our job. We're hyped people for this awesome game system that is tried and true. It's been around for a long time, and there's a reason there are so many versions for it. So we'll go ahead and end the stream there. Thank you again, Kayla and Reegan, and thank you everybody for watching, for being here live, or if you're tuning in afterwards for watching the stream. Thank you so much. Side Game Strong, y'all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.